Welcome back to The Big Show. It's Alex Belfield talking to the stars of Broadway. And we've got for you now the star of one of the most popular tickets on Broadway this season. Anything Goes is just doing gangbusters business. And Adam Godley, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you, Alex. Very nice to be with you.
Well, it's nice to see you because you play the posh role in this. And really, without you, it wouldn't work because we've got to have a certain air of grace about this Anything Goes, haven't we?
Well, yeah, I mean, he is the fish out of water here. And the whole thing is set, as you probably know, on a boat travelling from New York to London. And so Lord Evelyn Oakley is really the repository of all Americans' view of what Brits are like. So it's funny as a Brit to play that in New York. It's a kind of weird, strange headspace I have to occupy of taking slightly the piss out of my own people and presenting it to the Americans and trying to take the piss out of them as well. And it's an interesting ride, definitely. Yeah.
What I hadn't realised about this show that I'd forgotten since I last saw it probably 10 years ago in London was it's basically a farce, isn't it? There's a lot of nonsense in this.
There's a lot of nonsense, and we have to just keep running. The minute it starts, we're like, run and don't stop and don't look down, because it's like Wile E. Coyote, in Roadrunner. The minute you look down, you're going to drop, and it's over. So we just have to keep moving so nobody can think about the plot, which makes absolutely no sense at all. A couple of Chinamen appear at the end of the play from nowhere, and we're like, have they been helicoptered in? How did they get here? But you don't ask those questions. You just get on, say your lines as quickly as you can, get off.
You know there's a good farce when there's a lot of door slamming, and there's certainly a lot of door slamming in this.
Lots of doors. We probably got 8 or 9 doors, and thank goodness for them. Yeah, so as I say, it's just, it moves really quickly. It's that kind of Groucho Marx, kind of Marx Brothers, very fast delivery. And the great thing here, obviously, is that it's so embedded in American culture, written in 1934, and obviously the people, I'm surrounded by great American actors who really get it. And it's been a thrill to be acting amongst them, and it makes you kind of up your game.
Is there a certain relief when you come into something that's a revival knowing that it's going to work? Because let's face it, we know the tunes, we know the story, it's going to make us laugh, and we can all sing along. Yeah,
you're definitely ahead of the game before you even begin, and there's a sense of all we have to do is screw it up. But also with that is a kind of responsibility, because people come in and they know the songs, and it's got to be good, and it's been done before, and so we've really got to present something exceptional, and everybody has tried their hardest to do that.
And again, at the end of the first act, there's a moment where they sing Anything Goes, and it's got to be big, and it's got to be enormous, and it's got to go on for about 15 or 20 or 25 minutes, yeah. And it's got to be spectacular, and you nailed it last night. That's the moment where we know whether it's going to work or not.
Yes, and I know when we saw that number in rehearsal for the first time, we were all like jaws dropped on the floor. How the hell do they do it? Incredible crack team of dancers. And our director, Kathleen Marshall, is primarily a choreographer, so her big strength is in those numbers. And the end of Act 1, it's kind of incredible every night to hear the audience just roar with approval when they've seen these guys just going for it. And you've got, a stage full of dancers. I think for Kathleen, who's done a lot of work and been very lauded on Broadway, she's never had such a big cast and so many dancers to play with. And she really has run with that. And it's fantastic and very gratifying that the audience go out to the interval, on such a high.
This is one of the few shows at the moment where there are people queuing outside for returns. There are no seats available, literally. I'm curious, though, to find out about your jokes and whether they work every night. Do you always get laughs in the same places, or some nights is it different?
No, it shifts, and that, it's one of the beautiful things about doing theatre. It's never the same from night to night. A lot of the jokes here are kind of wordplay, and you've got to be on your game 100% every moment, because if you swallow a word or you don't get the feed properly or something is distracting, it's not going to land. And I feel like we get it right probably 80% of the time. It changes around, different bits work on different nights. There are some nights when nearly everything hits, and that's really gratifying. So yeah, it's a ride.
So if you stop speaking and there's nothing, is that your fault then?
Always, definitely. But what I do is turn to the other actor and look at them as if it's their fault. And that usually gets me out of it.
Is it for you, coming into a show like this, a thrill? I mean, you're a British actor that's done so many things. We're going to get to that next. But there's a lot of people they could choose. Why you?
Oh my goodness, you'd have to ask them that. I got the script and read it and thought, I just love this guy, and I get him, and I know who he is, and I know what I want to do with it. And I walked into the audition with them, presenting them with my version of who he would be, and they seemed to like it, and that's why I'm here. And I guess there is a bonus to having a Brit play this role. I mean, there's so many. There's a bit of Basil Fawlty, there's a bit of Carry On, there's a bit of Terry Thomas. There's so many references that I can access that Americans might not know that I can feed into this role. And, I could sometimes hear a little laugh in the audience and I go, I know that's a Brit, because only they would pick this up. But, the Americans love that kind of Python-esque stuff. They really go for it. They love British humor. All those British comedy shows are just such a hit here. Some of them they even remake themselves, as you know. So I think that there's a real appreciation for Brit humor here. And it's lovely as a Brit to play this role and be able to tap into all of that.
And there's also a bit of Benny Hill, just very silly stuff that nobody needs to understand. You just need to laugh at it.
Absolutely. And, this is not the source of that kind of humor, but it's part of the line of history of where that kind of humor Benny Hill drew on. He knew about all the Marx Brothers films, and he drew on all of that stuff. And it's lovely to place some of the history of that kind of comedy.
In this role, can you be too silly, or is there a line?
Definitely too silly. I think if you make it too cartoony, they'll go with it at first, and then they'll just get bored with it, and it's exhausting, because if there's nothing really for you to latch onto, if it's just funny, silly gag constantly, and there's no plot, there's no story, there's nothing real for the audience to latch onto, I think they get bored, and they kind of cotton onto it, and they go, no, we're not believing it anymore, and it's not funny. So I think the real danger is to just sort of ham it up and cartoon it up too much. So it's a real interesting balance to keep your hand on the sort of throttle on the tiller and just go, okay, I'm playing it up a bit too much, just pull it back. You've got to be very kind of self-disciplined with that. And I think often the audience response tells you a lot. You go, why are they not laughing? Probably because you're hitting it too hard. So a bit of your ear is constantly listening, and if something's not working, ask yourself some questions about what you're doing.
And again, Adam, with reading your biog and where you've been previously, the RSC and Royal Court, you've done proper theatre, if you like. How does this text compare to proper theatre?
Well, you touched earlier how silly the plot is, and I don't really do musicals, and so I come in and I'm going, okay, what's the story and who is this character? And I'm looking in the script to find all those clues. That's the first place. That's where you start, begins and ends with the script. And of course here, none of it really makes any sense. So you go, okay, I've got to now fill in a lot of gaps myself. So there's been a lot of me sort of jumping over big holes in plot and character, and that's been a real interesting challenge because it's not in the script. So much of it is not in the script, and if I want to make this guy at all believable and make his sort of psychological journey at all credible, I've got to make up a lot of stuff that works for me in my head to make it playable for me. So that's an extra challenge that you don't get with an absolutely cracking script where all that work is done for you. Here, that work isn't done. The gags are set up, the funny lines are there, and it's now up to me to go away and try and make up somebody who would believably speak these lines and say these words.
It's been done so many times before. Do you distract yourself with those who have played it previously?
Not at all. And I've done a lot of plays, coward plays and wild plays, that, great actors have played those roles and made a huge success in them. And, recently I did a production of Rain Man in London. And, Dustin Hoffman had played the role that I was playing in a film, and people would talk about that. And I really, honestly, never gave it a second thought. Here's the script. I'm an actor. I'm employed to do the script, and I'm going to do my version. And I think it's a real trap to fall into, is to start to worry about what other people have done, because it's really none of your business. They did their thing. And what you're going to do is going to be your version of that role, you meeting that character, and then somebody else will come and they'll do another version.
I suppose, therefore, the worst insult I could give you is that you're impersonating somebody who'd done it previously. That's not what you want to hear.
That's not what I want to hear, definitely. I'm sure there may be choices you make as an actor that another actor has made the same choice previously. I'd love to think you both came to it independently. I think it'd be fatal for an actor to watch someone else's performance and try and imitate it. I think that's one of the hardest things about being an understudy, because obviously we have understudies in this show, and they have to come in and they have to give your performance. And as an actor, that's a very difficult thing to do. That's a very particular skill.
Talking about the cast itself, Tony nominated so many of them. Sutton Foster is the lady who everybody talks about. Probably the greatest musical theatre actress of her generation, just sublime.
Absolutely, and she holds a position at the moment that very few others do, and you would expect someone like that in musical theatre to be a huge diva, And what's interesting about Sutton is that she came up through the chorus. Her big hit was Thoroughly Modern Millie about 10 years ago, and she was the understudy in that classic Broadway story. And lead actress falls ill, she takes over, makes it a success, wins the Tony, and her career is made. And Sutton has retained that sort of humility, and she's just an absolute delight to work with. And I have my big dance number with her, and I was treading on her toes, and I was, doing terrible things to her and singing at her appallingly all through rehearsal. And she was so delightfully supportive and humble, and has just been an absolute delight to work with. And she's very alive on stage every night. It's one of the things as an actor, when you're doing a show 8 shows a week, you can go crazy, and the only way not to go crazy is to keep the thing alive, and that's what the audience deserve. And with Sutton, whatever I throw at her, she picks it, takes it, and runs with it, and she'll throw things at me, and it's a delight to work with her. She's very much alive every night, and that's been a real delight and a real bonus.
I think that's what makes a show like this better than other shows. It looks like you're enjoying yourself, and at the end of the day, it is entertainment. It might be the greatest script in the world, but ultimately, I just want to be entertained.
Absolutely. That is our job, and I feel really passionately about that, because people come and they pay $130 or whatever it is for a ticket, and, they deserve to get their money's worth, and our job is to make sure they do. And I can't bear it when people are not working hard and being lazy, and, the audience response is not very good, and they blame the audience. It's not the audience, it's us. They're only responding to what we give them. And I feel the audience have to get their money's worth, and we have to do our best every single night. And that's what keeps me going. And then when the curtain comes up at the end, and for the first time you see the faces of the audience, and literally we had people running down to the front of the stage with their arms open shouting, "Thank you, thank you." And then you think, okay, I did my job.
This is the feel-good musical as well. Going back to Sutton, who's nominated for a Tony, as are you. I interviewed her twice over the years. It's amazing now how she's too important to talk to me. How the years change.
Oh my goodness. Well, I'm sure that's not come from her. She may be too busy. Her people around her, but not from Sutton. She's utterly down to earth and delightful.
The nomination thing, which she's up for, and I'm sure she's going to win because just a spectacular performance, as is yours. Does it change you? Does it change how you're respected? And does it matter to be nominated for a Tony?
Well, as I walk down the street now, people tend to go down on their knees and sort of genuflect in front of me. So in that respect, it changes things, but otherwise, no. I think when you've been round the block a few times in the business, you just have to keep all that stuff in perspective. It's lovely and thrilling and a great honor to be nominated for a Tony Award. It's kind of the big award over here, and awards over here seem to mean a lot. But I just like everything else, I just try and keep it all in perspective. It's a lovely honor, but you've got to keep it in perspective.
Again, though, it's nice to be nominated. Not to be nominated, though, can end in disaster on this street, this Broadway. I mean, shows have closed just because they haven't got a nomination, not because they're not any good.
Yeah, it's absolutely brutal. I mean, a couple of shows opened this season, and you get a bad review in the New York Times, and at the end of that week, you are off. And you've been rehearsing, and the whole thing's taken a year to get up, but if you don't get a good review, you're out. And nominations certainly help, and you see those banners go up outside those theatres within seconds of the nomination to let people know, because it's tough out there, and there's a lot of competition.
And again, the thrill of being in a success, having people queuing outside. Do you still pinch yourself that you got this role and that they chose you? Because there is a certain element of, look, I know your talent has to meet the opportunity, and you certainly have done that in this role, but still, there's a lot of people out there.
There are a lot of people out there. It is luck. It is definitely luck. A lot of luck is involved. I think it's also being in the position to take advantage of the luck when it swings your way is crucially important.
You can easily be written out, I've noticed, in these shows, especially when they're setting up. It's amazing those who are announced and then suddenly disappear.
Yeah, and that happens for all sorts of reasons. We a couple of people were involved in our show when I joined it, and by the time we got to the first read through, the cast had sort of mysteriously changed. But that happens for all kinds of reasons. I think it's more of an issue in TV, to be honest. You hear more of those kind of horror stories on those TV shows.
Is it fun going in every night? I know it's hard work, especially on those 2 show days. But, I mean, you talked about energy earlier. This show needs it. Without it, it's going to down its backside. Yeah. The energy feeds you, I know, and some of you even get to walk through the audience so you can see if they're sleeping. How exciting is it for you to walk down that street every day and see your theatre where you're going to perform?
It is exciting. I think the moment that gets me every night is when I hear the overture begin, because that's such one of those classic backstage Broadway moments. The bands, we've got a 15-piece orchestra and fantastic new arrangements for the music. And there's just something undeniably exciting about hearing the band strike up and think, okay, here we go on this 2.5-hour journey. It's thrilling. It's genuinely thrilling.
It is hairs on the back of the neck go up moment, isn't it? As is the close to the first act, which is just tremendous. You do this beautifully. Go and see Anything Goes. It's going to be here for a while. How long are you in it? Are you happy to be in it as long as they want you?
Yeah, pretty much. We're here, I think, definitely till the end of July, and it's looking pretty good that we'll be on through the rest of the year.
Which end of July will that year be in?
I don't know.
It's got to be this one. There's no way it's closing. Yeah. I mean, let's face it.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully it goes on, and Roundabout, deserve to have a great hit.
Adam Godley, thank you so much for talking to me. Real pleasure. And go and see Anything Goes. It's here on Broadway, and it's going to win lots of awards. Break a leg tonight. Thank you.
Thanks, mate. Cheers.